Hey, before we get going on the main topic today, let's do a little quick weird news, kind of weird news, weird bit, I guess. Maybe we'll drop these in.
Okay.
If you guys, I'm talking to listeners right now, like them. Just something that happened pretty recently that we thought you'd before, rather than wait for whatever our next episode of Weird News is.
Okay.
So, have you heard of Greg Phillips? Greg with 2 G's, actually, I guess 3 G's. Have you heard of him?
Nope.
Greg Phillips is the Associate Administrator for the Office of Response and Recovery at the Federal Emergency Management Association, FEMA. That's the government entity that handles disasters and things like that. That is now being starved of funds by the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely created their budget. But he has a very responsible and pretty important position. It handles some fairly important things. It deals with emergency aid, restoring infrastructure that follows any kind of a natural disaster. They handle search and rescue operations, and they distribute disaster assistance that's in the quantities of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty important senior position. It's unfortunately also a political position, so this was a political appointee. He only started in very, very late December of 2025, but he didn't take long becoming a little bit controversial because he said he has teleported.
Oh.
Literally teleported. One day, he was getting breakfast for his kids, he says, and suddenly he was at a Waffle House. A Waffle House some 50 miles away.
Wow.
I like to get kids. They're like, Waffle House, he's from Georgia. Who doesn't love Waffle House? If you're from Georgia, and don't have most of your teeth. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm sure Waffle Houses
Waffle House?
are great. No, because we don't have Waffle Houses.
I've been to one. Actually, I believe I was one in Georgia
Yeah.
because I didn't know. I'd never heard of Waffle House, which seems extraordinary. It's probably the first time I was in Georgia. This is years ago. And I did stop into Waffle House because I don't know. Okay, fine. There's just waffles. They taste like just waffles you pop up from a toaster. It's fine. It's hard to really screw up waffles.
Well, that's probably not true, but...
Well, it is true, though, that he teleported to a Waffle House. Though.
Well, that's weird.
You don't deny that, do you? So,
yeah.
So Greg Phillips said that he's posted this on Truth Social, by the way, and just so right away, people are, what happened? What do you think happened to Greg online?
On Truth Social?
Just online, period.
I mean, I would imagine he got a lot of ridicule.
He did. He got some, yes.
Yeah.
He got some negative reactions. Some people might call it bullying, but he responded though. He was not going to. He didn't back down. In fact, if anything, he doubled down. He said, "quote I know what I've experienced. I know who I serve." We're heading a little dangerous now. You work for the government. There's this thing called the First Amendment. He says, "I have no regrets for my words, nor my faith in my Savior, Jesus Christ." The Bible has many examples of the power of God. So he's quickly veering into, I teleported.
Yeah,
what, you
but
don't
God
think I
did
did? I guess you hate God and the Bible. He cited a passage from the New Testament's book of Acts where the Holy Spirit, quote, snatched, end quote, the Apostle Philip after his baptism on a road between Jerusalem and Gaza. And then Philip was described in the Bible as suddenly showing up in the city of Azotus, which is many miles away. And back then, remember, that's before they had cars. So he teleported just like 3 or 4 miles. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Greg had to teleport, I think, about 50 miles when he went to Waffle House. And again, by the way, he went to Waffle House. He didn't ask to go to Waffle House. He didn't say, God, take me to Waffle House real quick. He just suddenly was in a Waffle House, and it was many miles away. I wonder if God picked up the tab for the Lyft ride home. I don't know. If not.
I mean, maybe he was just sitting there making breakfast for his kids and thought, oh, God, I would love to have a waffle from Waffle House right now.
He said, quote, I was with my boys one time, and I was telling them I was going to go to the Waffle House and get Waffle House, and I ended up at a Waffle House.
I think he's paid by the Waffle House.
Maybe this was in Georgia, and I end up at a Waffle House like 50 miles away from where I was. That's just...
I mean, or maybe he was really drunk.
That's a possibility, too. I mean, he said, I mentioned this is breakfast, but hey, it's 1 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, yep.
And I mean, not very close to Georgia, but still. Yeah. He is also a major proponent. He got this job because he's a big a proponent of the big lie that Trump lost in 2020 only because the election was rigged. He was part of Dinesh D'Souza's infamous flop 2,000 Mules, which pretended there was all these fake votes, and that's how the Biden administration, Biden folks, who, by the way, again, we're not in power, rigged the election. And in 2020, in January of 2025, on a podcast, he said about President Biden, quote, "I would like to punch that bitch in the mouth right now. He is a nasty, shitty, crappy human being, and he deserves to die, and I hope he does," unquote. So this is someone who believes in the Bible, believes in the forgiving preaching of his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ by wishing the death of the, at the time, sitting President of the United States of America.
Yeah, that pretty much tracks.
He was recently going to testify in front of the House Homeland Security Committee, but at the last minute, the Trump administration said, no, actually, you stay home. We'll have someone else take your place, and they pulled him off. Because this has become something of an embarrassment even for the Trump administration, as this guy might just be a little more nuts than he's worth for this appointment. So that's the story of Greg Phillips, senior administrator at FEMA, at a division of a very important job, the division of FEMA, believes that he teleports.
I propose that this new little section we do, or segment, just be profiling somebody in the Trump administration.
Okay. We could do that.
I was going to say, there's probably lots of material there.
The Trump follies. This is one of my recent favorites, though. So, hope you enjoyed it. Let's get on to the regular topic.
Thanks.
He murdered the innocent. He teased the press and police. He named himself. He was the Zodiac. And he remains the most famous monster who got away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Weird World Podcast. My name's Carrie.
I'm Dean.
So,
pissing off Carrie a little more by doing another murder case. This, of course, follows the Sherry Joe Bates murder mystery, which, of course, kind of leaned into the idea of the Zodiac, and it was natural to follow it up.
And how did I forget?
I don't know. We're going to do this a two-parter, I think, in all likelihood. Part one, we're going to go through what the Zodiac did, and it's actually maybe, I don't know what you think out there, how much you've known about the Zodiac for you, the listener, but his career wasn't all that long, and he wasn't maybe as prolific as many other serial killers. He was famous for other reasons than almost the murders is how and why he is so famous. That, of course, because he got away with it.
Yeah.
We don't know for sure who did it. In part two, we will discuss the suspects, and I kind of teased in the Sherry Joe Bates story that I do think I have a pretty good idea. And there's actually one person who's kind of by far the most likely culprit, but there are lots of suspects, some of them pretty credible, some of them less so. So we're going to start, though.
Every other person's dad did it.
There's a massive cottage industry in your father being the murderer.
Yep.
One, who is this? I think it's that former L.A. cop who his dad literally was the Black Dahlia, the Zodiac, and like two or three other. Just if you're a famous serial killer, this guy's dad did it. It's just, these people are vile. No one's dad did any of those things. Every book that says my dad was a killer was a liar.
Well, it's possible someone's dad did it.
I have spoken. It is not. I mean, they're all pretty slimy and pretty unlikely, and they're despicable money grabs by people who are despicable money grabbers. So we're going to start with.
Get your timelines out, people.
Sure. If you want, you don't really need a timeline for this, but if you want to, fine. At the time, it didn't seem like the start of anything. Of course, it was 5 days before Christmas in 1968. And it actually started maybe with a very close call. And you're going to see this in another case of the Zodiac. But on December 20th, 1968, a guy named Bill Crow was out with his girlfriend, and they were along Lake Herman Road, which is in Solano County, which is kind of the North Bay. If you know the Bay Area, it's north of the Bay. So sort of north and east of the city of San Francisco, and the other side of the water.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Sure.
And the Vallejo is the city kind of on the southernmost part of Solano County. Next to it is the city of Benicia. It actually is it's always counted as a county in Vallejo. Technically, this location is in Benicia, right across the border from Vallejo on Lake Herman Road. It's kind of a pull-out just a, some fairly lonely rural road connecting Vallejo to Benicia, and it's just a little pull out, and it was kind of a lover's lane.
Well, and I was going to say in the 60s, this area probably wasn't
Still isn't.
super highly populated,
It
right?
still isn't. And this specifically, Lake Herman Road, is
Yeah.
still not.
Okay.
Look at the satellite map right now. It's pretty empty there. Where this occurred, there's nothing there. It was like a pull out next to a water pumping station.
Oh, okay.
And I think, yes, I believe it was. And it was kind of a lover's lane. People went there and they made out or more.
Yeah.
Bill Crow and his girlfriend were out along this little pull-out there on Lake Herman Road in the early evening of December 20th, 1968. And he said that Bill Crow would say that he saw a white Chevy drive past them, and then it stopped and it backed up. And the guy just sat there, and it's like, what's going on here? He could see a male by himself. Again, this is like a little lover's lane kind of thing, so that seemed weird to him. So before the person can get out of the car, or if this person in his white Chevy is going to get out of the car, Bill just gunned it. He turned around and drove the opposite way. The white Chevy followed, sped out from the pullout, and followed them down Lake Herman Road. Bill was able to make like one of those TV show quick right turns and lose him.
Oh.
That would prove very auspicious for Bill and his girlfriend. Also, by the way, two hunters said they also saw a white Chevy parked at a different gravel turnout along Lake Herman Road. And when they started to approach the car, they didn't see a driver in there at that time. So whoever was, I don't know, maybe hiding. I don't know. It's not clear. So later that night, Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Arthur Faraday, 17 years old, they drove up in David's car to that same gravel, about 45 minutes or so. And it was around something like 9 p.m., a little after 9 p.m. So after Bill Crow had seen that white Chevy and taken off and lost it, Betty and David parked there to chat. They were high school students at Vallejo High School. Oh, I'm sorry. Faraday went to Vallejo High School, and Betty went to Hogan High School nearby. It was their first date. It was Betty's first date ever that she'd ever been allowed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a horrific first date. So they're on this little pull out at Lake Herman Road, and they're having a chat. And
that's not appropriate for a first date.
Probably not. It is a little weird.
So should be at the soda fountain.
Yeah, I think they went to a friend's house first, and then they went to this lover's lane after that, and they're there for a little while. Sometime it's not clear when they got there exactly, but about 10:15 or 10:30, a passing motorist saw the couple parked on that gravel pull out near the gate of the water pumping station, and another car at 11 p.m. saw them there as well. So we have a pretty good idea of when this happened. It happened probably about 11:05, 11:10, somewhere in that range, just sometime shortly after 11 o'clock. That car pulled up. We assume it's a white Chevy. We don't know for what's going to be obvious reasons. And this time the car pulled up and went right alongside them, just about 10 feet away. So very close, creepily close for sure when you're in there kind of making out with your date.
Oh, you said they were talking?
Are chatting. Or still very like, what's that all about? We know this is still a lover's lane. If someone parks 10 feet from you is not cool. So this time, didn't waste any time. The person got out of the car and just immediately started firing bullets at David Faraday's car as the attacker walked around to the driver's side. So he's walking around the driver's side. He just starts shooting immediately before he even gets to the car. Wow. None of those shots hit David or Betty.
Wow.
So they scramble out, both of them through the passenger door because he's on the driver's side. Jensen is able to get out. Betty Jensen is able to get out. As David is quickly following her, the killer, I think through the window, shot him through the driver's side window and shot him in the head. It was a .22 caliber pistol, they would later find out, which is a fairly small weapon. And so he shoots David. He must have realized that he was not getting back up. So he came around the car and he chased after Betty, who was fleeing as fast as he can, and he fired 6 times at her back. 5 of those bullets hit her in the back. It probably took 2 minutes
Yeah.
to happen. At 11:10, so it had to be just minutes at most after the killer drove away, another motorist spotted the car and saw the bodies on the ground. That motorist called the police, and the police got there as quickly as they can, and very quickly, and they found that Betty was already dead.
Yeah.
She'd been shot 5 times. David Faraday, however, was still breathing.
Ooh.
They rushed him to the hospital, but he died at the hospital.
Wow.
That's what we don't know.
I wonder if he had been able to start the car and just, just drive away as quickly as possible. But
like the first,
Yeah.
maybe he already learned. 'Cause
Yeah.
he parked much, much closer to them this time, thinking, hey, they're going to take off. They're not going to have a chance. He got out of the car and started firing right away.
But like you said, he didn't
Mostly
hit
missed.
them initially.
He didn't. But
still,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I know. Gun it? I don't know.
Yeah.
My instinct would probably be to gun it, but I mean, they're being shot at from the driver's side. So it's like, get out of the car, get out of the car.
But were they sitting maybe he wasn't sitting in the driver's seat too, right? We don't know what they were doing.
Nah, I think he was. They're both in the front of the car, at least, if that's what you mean. I'm sure it had, I don't know, whatever. What do you think? They're in the back seat? They weren't. They're in the front seat, if that's what you're thinking.
Okay.
Okay. Good Lord, Carrie. Unfortunately, there is nothing usable from the scene. They didn't really have any good tire prints. They didn't have any even good footprints that they could really kind of use and identify. So the murder was huge. You got big, the Lover's Lane murder, these 2 young kids.
Yeah.
There's a huge local media and even regional media covered it pretty extensively. But that's kind of it. It was really viewed, and of course it should be. In hindsight, we shouldn't suspect that, but the police just trying to think out, okay, what went wrong? And they started investigating it. It was actually the Vallejo police, I believe, that investigated it. Because again, it was right along the border. It probably should have been, but I mean, Vallejo was a larger police department. It's a larger city. And so Vallejo police investigated. A detective named John Lynch would be the primary investigator of that murder. And he learned somewhere along the line that David Faraday had been like witness or knew about some kind of drug deal at the high school and was talking about it. So he said, "No, I think this is like a drug thing gone bad. They were getting at him. There's a revenge or something like that for talking about this drug deal or something like that." We, of course, would know that's very much not true.
Yeah.
But it was, again, this is not seen as the start of any kind of a serial killing. This was just seen as an isolated event. You look for a logical motive, and that seemed to be a logical motive, which just wasn't the case. Now, you'll see, because what the Zodiac was so famous for was writing letters and cryptograms, and that's what really naming himself. And that's kind of the things that made him went from being this awful, not super prolific serial killer. It's a horrible way to say that, but it's true.
Yeah.
Compared to people who killed 20, 30 people, which there's several of those, into something that was sort of an iconic serial killer. Was a lot of that is owed to the letters, and so he would later take credit for this and be able to convey things that only the killer could have known. So they quickly realized it wasn't some kind of drug deal or something like that gone bad. But at the time, there's no suspects. There's no reason to think this was not just a one-off. Whether it's like a psychotic thrill killer or there was some kind of motivation for it, the police were just thinking, okay, this is a one-time thing. We'll figure it out. Today, though, if you think about it, if you think it is some kind of a thrill killing, like you shoot somebody because there's a couple, kissing at Lover's Lane, is some kind of a weird thrill killer. These days, and that was one of the theories at the time, if we thought that now, we would think there's going to be more.
Yeah.
At the time, though, of course, they didn't think that. And it was quite a while. So remember, that was December 20th, 1968. Mm-hmm. It's not until 4th of July, 1969,
wow,
that Darlene Farron, age 22, and Michael Mago, age 19, were also in a parking lot, this time at a park in the city of Vallejo. So Darlene was a waitress at a place called Terry's, kind of a popular pancake restaurant, later called Rod's Hickory Pit, much better name, obviously, in Vallejo. And there she met Michael, who lived in Vallejo and lived nearby. In fact, only lived about a mile and a half away from her. They both lived in Vallejo at the time. Again, Darlene was married, but they got along at the restaurant, and she came and picked him up for a date on July 4th. The fact that I don't know the state of her marriage, but I don't.
Well,
yeah, a little weird. I don't know if it's like they still lived together, but her husband worked as a cook. And he worked nights, so I guess she worked nights. So she got off first, And so she went and picked up Michael at 11:30 p.m.
Wow.
for a date, quote unquote. Michael called her at about 11:30, and she went to pick him up, and she arrived at his house about 11:50. So she picks him up, Michael. Right away, they notice a car is following them shortly after they leave Michael's house. Michael lived at 864 Beechwood. Darlene was just, like I said, she lived at 1300 Virginia Street, about a mile and a half away. So right away, is it almost as if they're being followed, or is it just coincidence? We don't know. But a car followed them as they left. They drove to Blue Rock Springs Park. It's a little park up in Vallejo. It's not super isolated, but it's quiet, and it's a park around it, and it's like has a little parking
And it's
lot.
midnight, so
Yeah, it's midnight, although it is July 4th. This also was another kind of a lover's lane.
Yeah.
It's where you went to, as
Yeah.
they said in the day, neck. It's about 2 miles, by the way, roughly from where, in the Lake Herman Road location, where the first 2 murders took place. So it's not far at all.
okay.
Now, it's not clear if Darlene's car either stalled or she parked about 70 feet from the lot entrance. And
7 feet or 70?
70
Okay.
feet. But others say that they were parked in the park. So I'm not clear. The sources are kind of like weirdly varied
Yeah.
on this. Another car comes up. It's not clear if that was the same car or not, but there had to be that suspicion by them. It parks about 80 feet away in there. One source said, to their left. Thanks. Super helpful. The driver parks the car, turns off his headlights, and just sits there. And they can kind of see,
Get out of there.
Tell me about it, man. So that's why some people think it's possible that the car was stalled.
Yeah.
Because they didn't drive away.
Yeah.
That's creepy. And again, she's married.
Yeah.
There's a reason Michael's going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Is that your husband? He had to be thinking that. Michael asked her, who is that person in the car? Like she should know. And Farron just said something a little weird. Darlene just said, don't worry about it. And just as soon as she said that, the stranger just bolted, just gunned it, took off, left the park. Right? Okay, again, she's married. Michael has to be thinking, okay,
Yeah.
let's go. So it's not clear. They don't go. They're still there 5 minutes later. Maybe they just thought, okay, she's right. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Just some stranger. They left. Let's get back to business. So about 5 minutes later, though, the car returned. And this time it parked just a few feet next to Mago's car. Actually, I think they were in Michael Mago's car. I'm not positive. They are in Darlene Farron's car. Remember, she drove. The driver shines a flashlight into her car as he walked toward them.
Yeah.
They first thought, okay, it's a cop.
Right.
We're probably not supposed to be here. So they rode down Mago's window, remember, in the passenger seat, and not one word, the attacker just starts shooting them, this time with a 9mm pistol. He starts shooting into the car. One of the bullets hit Michael in the right arm. Another bullet hit Darlene in the neck.
Oh, no.
So Mago tries to get out of the car, but apparently his door handle just wouldn't work, or it was removed. He didn't have the handle of the car wasn't working. I don't know if he had to reach out. It's
Gosh.
It's an old crappy car, I guess. So he couldn't get out of the car right away. While he's trying to scramble out of the car, the killer walks back to his own car and does something. He opens the door and he's just doing something. Was he reloading? I don't know.
Yeah.
He's doing something for a few seconds at least. And as Mago is trying to struggle out of the car, remember, he's been shot in the arm. The stranger comes back and shot him again, shot Darlene again, 2 more times each.
Okay.
The attacker then ran off to his own car and drove off right away. A golf course caretaker was nearby, and he would say later he heard shots about 12:10 in the morning. So technically, I guess it was July 5th. And again, nothing to leave behind. They really didn't have any tire tracks. All they had was the bullets. There's nothing they really had to work. The police had to work on. So
Wait, did they both die?
well, hold on.
Okay.
A couple of teenagers drove by and they saw the car in the parking lot, and they saw that there was something was wrong. So they went near the car. They saw what had happened. They called the police. The police got there about 12:20.
Well, that's pretty quick.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
they had to run home to call the police, presumably, right?
Yeah, they must have. Or
Yeah.
Maybe it's a park. There could have been a payphone there. I
Yeah.
don't know. 20 minutes later or so, about 12:40 or so, Darlene Farron was pronounced dead. They had gotten to the
Yeah.
hospital, but she was dead almost immediately.
Yeah.
Michael, though, survived, and he would live. He described his attacker. This is where we kind of start to get a picture of who the Zodiac was. He was heavy set. He was white. He was something like 5 feet 8 inches tall. The height would change.
Yeah.
The body shape would not.
It's hard to judge height when
It's
you're
very
sitting in a
hard to
car.
decide. He estimated that he must have weighed like 195, 200 pounds. He was probably a little taller than that. He had a kind of a roundish face, and he had light brown hair. I think Michael said curly, light brown hair. He wore very dark clothes. He didn't wear glasses. In a later, the most famous sketch, we have him wearing glasses. But at this, Michael said he did not see any glasses on him. But there's not enough here that you can't,
Yeah. It's a very generic description.
Very generic. And at 12:40, it's just a minute or two later, shortly after they got them to the hospital, about 12:40, the Vallejo Police Department got a phone call from a payphone just 2 blocks from the Vallejo Police headquarters.
Okay.
2 blocks away. The man said, quote, "I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway to the public park, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye," end quote. I find interesting in that is that he just says the public park. He doesn't say Blue Rock Springs Park, which is a little bit interesting. Does that indicate that he's not from the area? Or does he know the name of the park? I don't know.
Kind of.
It may not. So that was where he first started. It's like, I didn't get credit for my first one. I'm going to make sure I get credit. And this is where he first starts.
Yeah.
Of course, now in the next one, he's going to start writing letters. But this time and calling, he actually starts doing both. But
But how, what do you mean he didn't get credit for the first one?
This is his second attack.
Yeah.
His second set of murders. He assumed he killed them both. He didn't know that Michael had lived. And nothing. He clearly, this person wanted to be famous.
Yeah.
And even in his own mind, even knowing who he was. So the first murders, there's no real speculation about him. People aren't talking about him. He wanted to make sure people are talking about him after the second one. So he calls and said, "I did it, and I did the last one as well."
Okay.
So some people thought that, hey, again, they're not really saying. I mean, I guess if they believe the caller, and maybe some in the police did not, but people in the Vallejo police thought maybe this could have something to do with her. She was a target.
Right.
That Darlene was the target, maybe because, again, she was married, so they, of course, suspected her husband. Naturally, he had a great alibi. He was a cook. Everybody saw him. He was a short order cook at a restaurant. There was no question he alibied out very easily.
Yeah.
There was another guy there was a man who had been really obsessed with her at the restaurant and had been bugging her and pestering her. Some people thought that was him. Again, Michael would say they were followed as they left her house. That's interesting. Some people have seen, that guy says that he looks kind of like the sketch of the Zodiac killer. Was the Zodiac a customer at her restaurant, and did he know? And in fact, this one, unlike the first one, was actually targeted in some sense. I don't know. Maybe it's possible, but it's not. No one knows.
Well, did they talk to that customer?
Yeah.
I mean, did they? He must have had an alibi or something.
Yeah, or he just didn't, work out.
Couldn't prove it.
A good suspect. The person, there was a name Richard attached to the person too. Like some customer said, I remember that there was a guy bugging her, and I think his name was Richard, but they never really developed much of that. So police almost immediately hit a wall, just like with the first one. They just have really almost nothing to work with. Again, at least this time they have a sketch, but a thought, a description of the assailant, but it's not very defining. So it's September 27th, 1969. So it's a little more than almost 3 months later.
Yep.
It's about at 4 p.m. or so. 2 students from Pacific Union College, as a university up in Napa County, up in northern Napa County, named Brian Hartnell. He was 20, and Cecilia Shepard. She was 22. They drove from Pacific Union College to the western shore of Lake Berryessa in Brian's white Carmen Ghia.
Oh.
As you know, Carmen Ghias were where Volkswagen took a bug, put a sporty
Smashed
little, it's kind of smashed it down and made it and sold it as this sporty little sports car, what was actually a Beetle.
They're cute.
Very cute, very popular. And they went there for like a picnic. They're a nice little couple. This is a Christian college, so they probably were not making out. They're having a little picnic.
For sure they were.
For sure. On the little spit of land on the western shore of Lake Berryessa is a very large lake in Napa County. And it's just a little, just a little picnic on it's almost like an island because this little spit of land is only connected by kind of a sandbar. So they walked across the sandbar and put their blanket down and having a little picnic. And about 6:30 or so, Guy in a car drives nearby, and he walks toward them. He actually parked on the road 500 yards or so away and walked down to where they were. And they see him kind of hiding behind a tree and looking at them. I don't know how, they're probably a little creeped out.
Yeah.
But he's between them and their car for sure. So they just kind of say, okay, I don't know who this guy is. I guess, we're just continuing with our picnic. And he then went behind a tree and he put on a black executioner's hood.
Ooh.
The eyes cut out. And he put clip-on sunglasses on the front of the eyes, presumably so they couldn't identify his eyes. Now, remember, Michael Mageau had lived in the first one.
Yep.
So he's clearly being more careful with disguising his appearance now. He had a white kind of a bib or poncho or something like that he put over his shoulders. It's about 3 by 3 feet, so it went down to about his waist or so. And on it, he had what would become the famous Zodiac symbol. It's basically a circle with a cross through it.
Right.
The lines extending beyond the circle. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So the lines the circle isn't the end of the lines.
It almost looks like a target.
A little bit. It looks like a target, yeah.
Or not a target, but like a scope.
Kind of.
The scope
it does.
thing.
Brian would later say the assailant had a gun. It was supposedly a .45, so a much bigger weapon than the .22, or even the 9mm. The person came up to them and he told them, "Hey, I am a jail escapee. I escaped prison. In doing so, I had to kill a guard. I'm not going to hurt you. I just need your car and your money because I got to get my ass to Mexico. So just cooperate and everything's fine." Now, of course, nowadays, if someone brought a costume with them to a lonely, secluded place and has a gun, and as we'll see in a second, has pre-cut bindings, he is not an escaped prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
There to rob you. He's a psychotic there to kill you, but you're scared and you have a gun and you're probably hoping for almost optimistic. Okay, because Brian thought he was a robber. He was just going to rob them, so they cooperated with him.
Yeah.
He gave him these bindings, these pre-cut like plastic clothesline bindings, and he said tie each other up around this tree. And so Cecilia tied up Brian with these pre-cut ties, and the Zodiac came over and checked them and to loose. So he made them much, much tighter. Mm-hmm. And then he tied up Cecilia. And he then stabbed them. By the way, we probably should have done a trigger, although if you don't know the Zodiac, it did.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go into the gory details, but he stabbed Brian 6 times in the back. He stabbed Cecilia 10 times. And he left them both for dead. Mm-hmm. He then walked back about 500 yards or so to Knoxville Road. He did leave some footprints this time, and they're kind of like boots, kind of like army boots. And he then went back to the car, so he knew that was their car. Obviously, the only people out there. He went back to the car Mejia that Brian had. He took a black felt tip pen and he wrote on the side of the car Mejia. He wrote the Zodiac symbol on the top, and then he wrote Vallejo 12-20-68, 7-4-69, September Sept 27-69-630, meaning time.
Yeah.
And below that, by knife. And I'll carry the picture. We'll link this. But you see it's little lines.
Yeah.
Notice that all of those words are spelled correctly. I know there are not a lot of them.
Yeah.
But they're all spelled correctly.
Yeah.
That'll come up.
Well, there are not a lot of difficult words.
They're not. But as you'll see from the letters, he was not good with words. Even some that you don't think are very difficult. So they're screaming while they're being stabbed. Notice he's not using the gun this time.
Yeah.
He binds. He's able to capture. He's able to control them completely. And this time he uses a much more personal and up-close weapon, a knife.
Yeah.
Repeatedly, he does not shoot them at all. He leaves them for dead after stabbing them only. There was a fisherman with his son in a boat on Lake Berryessa, and he heard the scream. So they went over there. In the meantime, Brian had been able to get close enough to Cecilia to untie her binds, which were in her back, with his teeth and get her, so her hands are free. She then unbound Brian. So they're both still alive at this
both
point.
being stabbed 6 times?
I know, 6 and 10.
Wow.
She was stabbed 10 times.
Oh, gosh.
So both were stabbed in the back. I think I might have been a ghost said that Brian was tied to a tree. He wasn't there. Tied basically and with their hands behind their backs, and they were put there. He face down. He laid them face down.
Oh,
so he
okay.
then stabbed them in the back repeatedly. So they were both stabbed multiple times, but they were in the back. So at least not yet. He had not hit something that killed him very quickly.
Yeah.
And so the fisherman and his son, they alert the police. 2 park rangers got there, and they tend to the couple who are badly injured and waiting for the ambulance to arrive. Ambulance arrived pretty quickly, as did Napa County Sheriff's deputies Dave Collins and Ray Land. They also responded to the attack, and they got there as soon as they could as well. By the time they got there, Cecilia was unconscious. I'm sorry. By the time they got there, Cecilia was still conscious, and she gave a pretty detailed description of the person who had attacked them. So they took both Brian and Cecilia to the hospital. During the ambulance ride to the hospital, though, Cecilia fell into a coma, and she never regained consciousness. She died 2 days later officially. Brian survived. So you have a second survivor from these attacks. So far you have 2 out of 6 people being attacked have survived. He would give
But
also...
you notice the women are the ones that aren't surviving.
Yeah, and notice, she was stabbed more than he was.
Yeah.
And Betty was also shot more than he was, although... not Brian.
That was a little more haphazard.
And he was in the male was shot in the head. So
yeah.
Brian's description of the person it was similar to the earlier description. It was a white male, a little bit of a round face. Here's a description. Here's a picture of it. We'll put that with our links. Just looks like a white guy. He's maybe in his late 20s or something like that. Maybe 30. It's hard to say. That description, though, was another sketch was made from earlier that day because a suspicious man was seen kind of haunting the shores of Lake Berryessa, just looking around. It's like, what is that guy doing here?
Yeah.
He's like casing the joint. This is the second time that's happened. Several people said, yeah, we saw this guy walking around. We don't know what was going on. It's weird. It's a fairly secluded place. You kind of have a purpose to be in, not just walking around for the most part. Dentist and his son saw this guy. They said he was kind of heavy set. They saw him from a fair distance, and that was around 2:50 p.m. It was about
that day.
That day, yeah. So it was hours before the Cecilia and Brian were attacked.
Okay.
So they said he stopped there, and 3 women noticed him as well. They were there to sunbathe, and so they thought this guy's kind of creepy. But they went to where they were going by the water, and they they hung out and were sunbathing, and they noticed him again. So they saw him, I guess, up by where their car was. They saw him again down by the water. He's clearly, that they're kind of creeped out, but he didn't do anything. To them. But they had seen him, so they were able to create that composite sketch with the Identikit facial composite device or tool that police use, and they showed it to this other witness and said, yeah, that's him. So he was hanging out there for quite a while before he attacked.
Yeah.
They described him as being about 6 feet tall, weighing about 200 pounds, so a little taller, but about the same weight. Otherwise, it kind of matched the descriptions of Cecilia and Brian Hartnell. And, San Francisco, Robert Graysmith was a person who was the kind of the lead. Jake Gyllenhaal plays him in the Zodiac movie. He would write a book about this. He was a San Francisco cartoonist, and he would get obsessed with the case, his marriage. And he would write a book also. He made a lot of mistakes. He's not a great source. Just FYI, if you run across Robert Graysmith's book on this, he's going to get some things wrong. But he became obsessed with it. And he drew this picture of it, and they published it in the San Francisco, I think, Examiner, or was Chronicle? Chronicle, I think, where he worked. But during this time, though, the Zodiac apparently drove 27 miles from the crime scene to a car wash in downtown Napa. This car wash was also not far at all from the Napa County Sheriff's Department, and he called the Napa County Sheriff's Department at 7:40 p.m., and he told the dispatcher there, he says, I wish to report a murder. No, a double murder. And then he confessed to the crime. He told the dispatcher of the Napa County Sheriff's, he said, I want to report a murder. No, a double murder. I am the one who did it. The dispatcher asked, where did this happen? He says, I stabbed them at Lake Berryessa. And then he hung up. He didn't hang up. He actually left the phone off the hook and walked away.
Okay. When did he do that? Exactly.
This was like about 7:40. So I looked. It's a roughly 45, 50-minute drive from where it took place. So he went probably pretty much straight to this car wash in Napa and called the Napa sheriffs from that payphone. He left a wet palm print from the phone, but it was never able to be matched to any suspect. And he didn't leave any prints apparently at the car or anything like that. So again, there's not a ton.
Yeah.
They have a pretty decent description but he's a nondescript white guy. I mean, if you're skinny and really tall, he's probably not you. But if you're kind of stockily built white man between 5'8" and 6 foot with brown or brownish hair, you're in the picture. So it's not a super helpful description, which is unfortunate. We now go fast forward to not that far, much later at all, about 2 weeks later, on Saturday, October 11th, 1969. We're now, though, in the city of San Francisco. Very different. These are all taking place in kind of rural or secluded areas. We're now smack dab. It's downtown San Francisco. A man calls for a cab. The cab driver gets there around 9:40-ish on that Saturday night, October 11th. The cab driver's name is Paul Stein. He was 29 years old. He was married. He was a PhD student studying to be English major, or getting his PhD in English at San Francisco State University. So he's basically doing this just to make ends meet while he's getting his PhD. The caller, the person who called the cab, gives him an address in Presidio Heights, which is in the very northern tip of the city of San Francisco. It's a very residential area, but think like, urban residential, but big, beautiful homes on smallish lots with no real backyards and like that. But, it's the high rent
typical
district
San
for sure.
Francisco.
It is, but it's a very nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he gives him an address on Washington and Maple Streets. This is just a few blocks from the Presidio, which is the true northern tip where the southern end of the Golden Gate Bridge starts. This is not far away from the Golden Gate Bridge, so that helps you know where this is. When they get there to Washington and Maple, which is what he said, he goes, wait, go another block to Washington and Cherry Street. And it's about 9:55 now. And without saying a word, as far as anyone knows, the Zodiac just shot Paul Stein in the back. He was sitting right behind him in the cab, always suspicious, and shot him in the head with a handgun. He got out very calmly, and we'll know because we have witnesses, and he took his wallet and his car keys. You notice he's taking things. He didn't just take that, though. He would rip a large portion of his bloodied shirt off of him. He would actually cut it out and take that with him as well, Paul Stein's shirt.
Okay.
Yeah, he's getting trophies.
Yes.
But he's also getting things that can prove
to
he's
prove
the guy.
it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. He's getting proof.
3 teenagers were at the home. I believe the address is 3903 Washington Street. It's right across Washington Street from where this occurred. They saw everything. They were in the upstairs bedroom just hanging out. And they saw it take place. They saw the shots. They saw him get out of the car. They saw him take his step. They saw him go to the other side and cut, because Paul fell across toward the passenger side as well. In fact, when the police opened the door, his arm would actually fall out on the passenger side. So they saw him take his trophies, and they saw him walk away. They called walk away, because remember, he had taken the cab out there.
Yeah.
He was not in his own car. You got to think we don't know for sure, but in all likelihood, he must have parked his car somewhere not too
close
far
by,
away, and then walked.
Yeah,
a fair amount of downtown San Francisco to call a cab and go back,
or took another cab down there earlier.
Probably didn't take another cab back though,
because that would have
we would know
why. Every cab from
we know everybody would see his face the next day in the newspaper. Any cab who picked him up at 10 o'clock or something like that from anywhere near the Presidio would have known, and we didn't do that. My guess, I think he almost certainly parked his car somewhere in the Presidio neighborhood. The three teenagers would say that his face was very clear. They saw him right under a street lamp. They could see his face. They felt very sure that they could identify him, and they were able to give a description and do the identikit thing as well. That has become the most famous kind of iconic picture of the Zodiac. He has this close cropped hair. He's wearing those glasses kind of famously. We don't know whether he hadn't worn them every time, so it's unclear. Did he just do that to disguise himself? Did they really need them? Did he also have was contacts were a thing in 1969?
Probably.
I think so.
He's still a pretty generic looking guy, though.
He's a totally generic looking guy, as always. They called the police, and they were there like in no time, like minutes.
Yeah.
And so the kids called the police, and they gave a description to the dispatcher of what they saw. They described the killer as a, quote, husky, end quote, white man in a, quote, dark or black jacket, end quote. The dispatcher didn't hear black jacket.
Oh.
The dispatcher heard black man. So the dispatcher told the police, look for a black man, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
He just shot a cab driver. Without
Darn
that
it.
incredible, horrific mistake, as we'll see here in a minute, it's almost certain that the Zodiac would have been caught right there that night. Because just like 2 minutes later, these two patrol officers responding to it, two San Francisco police officers, they saw a guy walking down the street very nearby, away from the crime scene, but he was a white guy. He had dark clothes on, and he was walking north towards the Presidio Army base.
Yeah.
And
Darn it.
so they said, hey, maybe he's a witness. They said, hey, did you see anything suspicious? And he said, yeah, I saw someone waving a gun, and he was going that way, east. So remember, he's going north.
Yeah.
He pointed east and said, yeah, dude's waving a gun. They probably said, is he black? Yeah. And so the officers, zoop, lights and sirens, darted east toward this phantom killer. And the Zodiac would later write a letter and say, that was me.
Yeah.
You guys messed up. What that did, though, is that produced now a third sketch, and that was the most famous one. Again, like you said, it's still fairly nondescript.
Yeah.
And the police are now, because it's San Francisco, there's no reason to tie it to these killings up in the North Bay area. So they thought it was some kind of a robbery. That wasn't uncommon. But then the Zodiac would mail a letter on October 13th. This wasn't his first letter. This is, I believe, his third letter. He mailed a letter on October 13th to the San Francisco Chronicle, and it had a piece of Paul Stein's bloody shirt in it to prove he had indeed done it. And the letter was infamous now. It said, quote, "This is Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a blood-stained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area. The SF police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly, instead of holding road races with their motorcycles misspelled, seeing who could make the most noise." No idea. The car drivers should have just parked their cars and sat there quietly waiting for me to come out of cover. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out, end quote. That's what made him famous, internationally famous almost overnight.
Yeah.
It was they were highly publicized murders, but this kind of created this persona.
So they published this letter?
They sure as hell did.
Wow.
They also published the composite sketch of him as well.
I'm kind of surprised they published the letter.
I'm not. I mean, they thought it's the responsible thing to do because he threatened if they didn't publish it. The two San Francisco police detectives put on this were Bill Armstrong and Dave Toschke, Toschii, or Toshi. And later, Toschke would handle the case himself. Remember, he was only officially investigating the Paul Stein murder. The others were in other jurisdictions, Napa and Vallejo, Napa County, and the other one, City of Vallejo. He would work the case obsessively, and he would he would do something incredibly stupid we'll hear about later, and ruined his career, but rightfully so. He believed that now I mentioned the misspells. This one wasn't too bad, but and throughout his letters, there were lots of misspellings, like he was dumb and uneducated.
Yeah.
Toski thought that was bullshit. He's right.
Yeah.
That was nonsense. It was not true. It was purposeful to appear that he was uneducated and could barely write, but he's also doing cryptograms. So, and he's using not super sophisticated words, but he misspelled silhouettes with WETS at the end, silhouettes, or thing like that. If you know the word silhouette, you probably know how to spell the word silhouette.
Yeah.
So I think Dave Toski was right. I think when we talk about who the suspects were, this person was pretending to be dumber than he really was. So let's talk about those letters and the scriptograms, because again, that's really what made the Zodiac world famous.
Yeah.
That, again, not officially getting caught, although he kind of was. Between 1969 and 1974, the Zodiac would write over 20 letters to newspapers, to the police. He would write to a San Francisco Chronicle writer, Paul Avery, multiple times, because that was a person really covering the story, and his byline was on a lot of the Zodiac stories. He'd also write to then famous attorney Melvin Belli. He was a very famous defense attorney.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the two most famous defense attorneys in the world at the time.
Which is weird.
Yeah, it is weird that there's ever a famous defense attorney, because
name a famous defense attorney now.
Yeah. And that's why he would say things like, "This is the Zodiac speaking." He named himself. So, and that symbol, like I said, it looks like a target. We'll see it. There's also some connections to it, to the Zodiac as well with that one. Some of the letters, they're postmarked from San Francisco. Some are postmarked as far away as Pleasanton, which is in the East Bay of San Francisco, 30 miles away or so. So the letters were then also accompanied by cryptograms. We'll talk about that in just a second. So the first really famous one was October 1st, 1969. The Vallejo Times, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the San Francisco Examiner all received 3 letters. They're written by the person taking credit for these murders. He said in this letter, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl last 4th of July. This was before the Paul Stein murders and before even the murders in September in Lake Berryessa. The 3 letters, again, had all these misspellings, but they were the first time.
3 letters? You mean 1 letter to each newspaper?
Exactly.
Same exact letter?
Pretty much the same letter.
Okay.
But they each had a different part of a longer cryptogram at the end of the letter. So one had like the first third, one had the second third, and one had the last third of it. And he would say something. He said, Dear Editor, this is the murder of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl on the 4th of July near the golf course in Vallejo. To prove I killed them, I shall state some facts which only I and the police know. Christmas. 1. Brand name of ammo, Super X. 2. 10 shots were fired. Again, this is the one in Vallejo on Lake Herman Road. 3. The boy was on his back with his feet to the car. 4. The girl was on her right side, feet to the west. 4th. So that's what he said, those 4 things. Like, I think he means after he killed them. That's what they were. 4th of July, 1. Now, this is the one in in Vallejo at the park.
Right.
1. Girl was wearing patterned slacks, pattern misspelled. The boy was also shot in the knee. 3. Brand name of ammo was Western. Over, and on the other side, it says, here's the cipher. Here's the part of a cipher. The other 2 parts of this cipher are being mailed to the editors of the Vallejo Times and San Francisco Examiner. This is the one to the Chronicle. I want you to print this cipher on the front page of your paper. In this cipher is my identity. If you do not print this cipher by the afternoon of Fry, 1st of Aug 69, I will go on a kill rampage. Fry night. I will cruise, misspelled, around all weekend killing lone people in the night. Then move on to kill again until I end up with 12 people over the weekend. So again, they had the cryptogram. They published the letters.
Yeah.
They all published the cryptogram as well. Combined, they formed a 408 symbol cipher. It's called the Z408. The cipher is called Z, and then usually the number of characters in the cipher.
Yeah.
It's kind of the shorthand for all of the cryptograms he wrote. So the police, actually the Vallejo police chief, Jack Stills, he said, he was quoted in the newspapers, he said, we're not satisfied that the letter was written by the murderer. And he, end quote, and he asked the killer to, hey, send more facts to prove your identity. He's obviously just trying to fish for information.
Yeah.
Just 3 days later, August 1st, when they got that letter, he wrote a letter on August 4th. And he sent that into, I believe, those same newspapers. And this one he described like the golf course and a caretaker who had seen him and heard those gunshots or seen him at least peeling away, at least driving away. And he also talked about what he had done. This one said, Dear Editor, this is the Zodiac speaking. And that's the first time he'd used that. So he named himself there. He says, in answer to your asking for more details about the good times I have had in Vallejo, this appears to be a response to the chief of police, I shall be very happy to supply even more material. By the way, are the police having, misspelled, a good time with the code? If not, tell them to cheer up. When they do crack it, they'll have me. On the 4th of July, he says, I did not open the car door. The window was rolled down already. The boy was originally, misspelled, sitting in the front seat when I began firing, misspelled. When I fired the first shot at his head, he leaped backwards at the same time, thus spoiling my aim. But you can't spell happy.
Yeah.
He ended up on the back seat in the floor in thrashing out very violently with his legs. That's how I got shot in the knee. And he says, but I drove away quite slowly so as not to draw attention to my car, because the caretaker said he peeled out and drove away. He was like, no. I was super calm. He described the caretaker and ended it. And he says, and then he talked about the last Christmas. He talked about the first murders. He said in that episode, misspelled, the police were wondering as to how I could shoot and hit my victims in the dark. He says they didn't openly say that, but he wondered about it. He said, well, first of all, and that's what he said, it was a well-lit night, and I could see the silhouettes on the horizon. Bullshit. That area is surrounded by high hills and trees. So he's saying, no, the police were wrong about that. I didn't see them. he's clearly building his persona as a genius. He says, what I did was tape a small pencil flashlight, misspelled, to the barrel of my gun. If you notice, in the center of the beam of light, if you aim it at a wall or ceiling, you will see a black or dark, misspelled, spot in the center of the circle of light about 3 to 6 inches across. When taped to a gun barrel, the bullet will strike exactly in the center of the black dot in the light. All I had to do was spray them as if it was a water hose. There was no need to use the gun sights. I was not happy to see that I did not get front page coverage. So he's describing what he did. He's clearly describing and saying, look how smart I am. And by the way, I want some front page coverage. And then he wrote, and then he left a cryptogram again. This is the Z408 cipher. The message was decoded, by the way, fairly quickly. Did not reveal his identity.
Oh, okay.
He was lying. Everything he did in those cryptograms were lies.
What was it decoded as?
You mean you want me to read it?
Huh?
You mean you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me find it. On August 5th, it was decoded by Donald and Betty Hardin. They were a couple that lived in Salinas. They were not cryptologists. They're just good. Betty deployed a crib because she correctly guessed that the word kill would appear in the message. So she found what she thought was kill, got Kill, and went from there. Again, the message had all kinds of misspellings, but and it referred to the famous short story from 1924 called The Most Dangerous Game, which is about hunting humans. It said, here it is, quote, I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest, misspelled, because man is the most dangerous animal, both misspelled, of all to kill. Something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is, and no periods, by the way, is they, Thae, when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, misspelled, and all the I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to sloy, Soloi, down or atop my collectiog of slaves from my afterlife. Ebiori et temfidibidifid. It's just like nonsense at the end, gibberish at the end. And that's it. So no indication of identification. Horrifically badly spelled.
Well, why do we think it's right?
It's right. It's for sure right. When you figure out a key to a cryptogram, it's not always, but in this case, there was 400. The more characters are, the easier it is. And he would start actually writing shorter cryptograms, possibly for that reason, because he didn't want it to be cracked.
Okay.
But it's correct. On October 22nd, 1969 now, this is just a short time later, there was Melvin Belli was duped by a mental patient who called into a radio show. Melvin Belli was on a radio show on KGO, on a morning TV show in San Francisco on the station KGO TV on October 22nd, and an insane asylum person who was called in and pretended to be the Zodiac and said asked to meet Melvin Belli, and Melvin Belli then went to that meeting, but no one showed up. It was a big to-do at the time. He also demanded to speak to, if he couldn't speak to Melvin Belli, he wanted to speak to F. Lee Bailey, who was the second other famous defense lawyer at the time. And he told him that he wouldn't reveal his identity because he thought he might be executed. And he arranged to meet with Belli at Mission Street in Daly City, but never showed up. And we would later find out that was a guy in a mental institution.
Yeah.
On November 8th, 1969, the Zodiac sent another cryptogram, and this one had 340 characters, and it would not be solved for 51 years. And they were pretty sophisticated. He got better at it. But finally, in December 5th, 2020, an international team of private citizens would using some software that they wrote themselves would figure out what was said. And this Z that was sent all the way back in November 1969. It said, I hope you're having lots of fan in trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show, which bringo up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise. This is not even close to spelled. All the suher, because now have enough slaves to werve for me where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise, misspelled, so they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death, end quote. So he spent his whole time. this is just my take, and we can talk about this more when we talk about the suspects. I don't think he believes a word of it.
Right.
I don't think he's insane in the sense that we think at all.
Yeah.
He's trying to sound insane.
Yeah.
And we'll see later. We'll see here soon that he also sort of ups his game. He starts taking credit for things that he did not do. He's a credit claimer because, believe it or not, he is done. That's the last person. Paul Stein was the last person he killed
right.
in 1969. He's done. He's now just a letter writer, cryptographer, teasing and playing with the police and the newspapers at this point for the rest of his
I wonder why.
career. We'll talk about that in the part 2. But he mailed a 7-page letter to Chronicle, so he's getting prolific at this point. he's reading his own, he's believing his own press, as they say. He threatened to blow up school buses. He included a diagram of a bomb, like, look, I know how to make a bomb. He says that he's never be caught because, quote, I have been too clever for them, end quote. On December 20th, he mailed a letter to Melvin Belli. Like, remember, he had never contacted him. That crazy dude had.
Right.
And now he's like, okay, I'll mail to Melvin Belli. And he enclosed another little piece of the Paul Stein shirt. And he said, he pleaded, quote, please help me. I am drowning. I cannot remain in control for much longer, end quote. I don't think he meant that.
Yeah.
I really don't. There's another very short one called Z13. It has only 13 characters. It's never been solved. He sent postcards. He sent a postcard with like a Halloween motif. He would send one with like an elf riding a dragon. He's just messing with it. And he started putting, like on the postcard, he would put, this was in April 20th, 1970 now. Remember, it's been months since the last time he killed. At the end of his message, it said, Zodiac symbol equals 10, SFPD equals 0. Like, I've killed 10 people. It's like me 10, you 0.
Yeah.
He's not killed 10 people.
No.
On April 28th, 1970, he wrote on a greeting card, he wrote to the San Francisco Chronicle, he says, I hope you enjoy yourselves when I have my blast, implying he's going to blow something up.
Yeah.
And on the back of the card, he said he's going to use his bomb to bomb a bus unless 2 things happen. The Chronicle should write about his bomb, and people should wear, quote, some nice Zodiac buttons. He wanted to start a fad of people wearing Zodiac buttons. He would later write how he was pissed off. He didn't see people wearing Zodiac buttons, and he was upset about that. He wrote a letter in June 26, 1970 that just talked about, hey, no one was wearing my buttons. What's going on here? So he said, I punished them another way. I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a .38, end quote. What he was doing, he was taking credit for very recently, a police sergeant in the SFPD had been named Richard Radich had been shot in his car. Just someone came up to the side of him and shot him in the head and killed him. That was 99% sure that was not the Zodiac. He was taking credit for it. Nothing else that appears to be the Zodiac. And by this time, he hasn't killed anyone else. It's still, the police checked into it. They do not. It's not solved, but they do not believe it had anything to do with the Zodiac at all. And it's. I think he's now just in credit claiming territory. He would do another saying Zodiac 17, SFPD 0. He got up, I believe, all the way to 37.
Oh.
Zodiac 37, SFPD. Why the SFPD?
Did he give details?
No.
Like he did of the other ones?
No.
Okay.
He would take credit. He would try to take credit. There was a famous Kathleen Johns would, in 1970, I think it was on March 22nd, was supposedly abducted in her car as she was driving in Northern California, east of the East Bay. She was still like in the Patterson area, which is kind of the Central Valley but the northern part of the Central Valley, not like on the approach to the eastern part of the Bay Area, if that makes sense for anybody at all. It probably doesn't. I apologize unless you know Northern California. But
I do, and it doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay. Well, anyway, she would be kidnapped by someone, and the person would drive her around with her baby, and she would jump out of the car when he stopped, and then race for the police, and then she said she saw that sketch of the Zodiac. She said, "That's him. That's the guy." I think she made it up. I don't think it happened.
Yeah.
And he took credit for that. If that didn't happen, and he was reading things in the paper.
I was going to say, it was reported, I'm assuming.
Oh, it absolutely was. It was a big story because she said the Zodiac did this.
Yeah.
So it's a big story. He read about things in the paper, and he's taking credit for them.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a lot of... Her story changed multiple times. She literally points at it, and that's the guy. I don't think it happened.
Yeah.
And I apologies to her if it did happen, or her family, whatever. But I think it was she made it up. And after that, he would say Zodiac 13, SFPD 0. But if he's taking credit for something that I'm pretty sure didn't happen, then that also kind of lends that he's now credit claiming. He's in his credit claiming
Era.
phase, which would last a fair amount of time.
Yeah.
He sent a Halloween card on October 27th, 1970. He threatened Paul Avery, the writer, in that card. He said, "Peekaboo, you are doomed." It had like a skeleton on it. He was trying to be cute.
Yeah.
It had what he thought was a sense of humor. So Paul Avery's colleagues at the newspaper would wear "I am not Paul Avery. I am not Avery" buttons on their thing. Please don't kill me.
So they had a sense of humor too.
Yeah, I guess so. He would also receive. He would also, as you recall, from the Cherry Joe Bates, he would take credit for the Cherry Joe Bates murder. And if you remember that, I'm fairly certain he did not. The Zodiac killer was not the same killer as Cherry Joe Bates, but he took credit for that. So again, I think he's taking credit. On March 13th, 1974, he wrote a letter to Los Angeles Times, and he said he had killed 17 victims. He says, "This is Zodiac speaking. Like I have always said," misspelled, "I am crack-proof. If the blue meanies are ever going to catch me, they had best get off their fat asses and do something, because the longer they fiddle and fart around, the more slaves I'll collect for my afterlife," etc. So he's...
Are we sure that's actually the same author?
Very, very likely. Most people think it is.
Okay.
But you never know. And there were lots of things that the police said, no, that's fake.
Yeah.
Lots of copycat letters in this era. These are the ones that they think he really did right. For 3 years now, he's silent. He doesn't write his next letter until January 29th, 1974, and it's postmarked from San Mateo County, which is on the peninsula south of San Francisco. And they complained that some columnist was, quote, "feel superior to everyone." He praised the Exorcist movie as the best satirical comedy, both misspelled, that I have ever seen. And then at that, he put "me equals 37, SFPD equals 0." And that's the last letter that he ever wrote. And remember, there's a gap there. They started becoming more sporadic. They disappeared for almost 3 years, from 1971 to 1974. And then after 1974, they stopped altogether.
Yeah.
There's never been another verified Zodiac letter since then. So he only committed murders for less than a year.
Yeah.
He only did 4 acts. He killed 5 people. He then wrote letters and cryptograms for a couple of years more.
Yeah.
Waiting quite a while, and then writing one more in 1974 and never writing again. And that was enough, though. That and staying uncaught until he died was enough to make him the most famous serial killer probably ever.
Probably wasn't already old. Like he didn't just die.
Well, remember, we have the descriptions. He was probably something like 30-ish. People aren't...
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
I mean, he still could have died. He still could have gotten in a car accident or...
He's dead. Because like I said, so in part 2, we're going to talk about... we're going to talk about a lot of murders that other people have tied to the Zodiac, both before and after his likely crimes. Almost like Jack the Ripper has these canonical murders, but there's people who have tied, especially before Jack the Ripper, to Jack the Ripper. This is kind of like that. And then we'll talk about the suspects of who the Zodiac was.
Okay.
That'll be part 2.
Okay.
So until then, I hope you enjoy it again. That's not the right word when we do these kinds of episodes.
It's interesting just because it's a very famous
It is.
case.
And it is.
And if you just have heard about the Zodiac and haven't really researched all of the details, you would think he's killed a lot more than 5 people.
Absolutely. It's surprising that how brief his time was.
Yeah.
I've been aware of this case for a long time, but it still is surprising that he didn't kill very long. He didn't kill that many. He left so many multiple people who lived.
Yeah.
And he then just wrote letters. I think he was scared. I think he was afraid of getting caught.
Yeah.
And so he effectively retired. But he loved the fact people were talking about him. He had a big ego, without question. So he kept writing these letters because that would put him back in the press until it just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
Now you've asked, I guess we'll talk about when we talk about the potential suspects, but why stop writing letters? Again, it could be as simple as he thought, the more I write, the more likely they're going to catch me.
Yeah.
I need to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
So that's part 1.
Okay. I was going to say maybe he was getting married. Maybe his wife was getting ready to have a baby.
Wow. You have a view of who the Zodiac killer was that matches no one else's. That's not what serial killers typically are like. Just FYI. All right. Until next time.
Thanks for listening.